Recording in progress. Welcome, Leo. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back. Welcome if you're new. Watch the video, hit like, subscribe, share, like all of that. That people are always saying this is what we do, right? And so, as you know, like mostly I channel information. I do look at cards and things like that. Today we're going to also be using runes. So you see what that's all about. I do things a little bit different, and I like to have fun, so I do tend to laugh at things. Provided it's not like really like serious and stuff, because I never know what's going to come out of my face. Spirit comes through me. Sometimes I get hijacked. That's the way I call it. I'll be going along doing my thing, and then spirit just takes over, and they do what they're going to do. And so we're just gonna see what goes on. Okay, so there's a lot of things happening out in the cosmos. We had a full moon earlier today, like I think it was like at 4:30 this morning, and it was a full moon in Gemini. And I've been looking at astrology recently, so I don't consider myself to be an astrologer. I usually tell people I know enough to be dangerous, and but I haven't been watching a lot of astrology channels lately because it is something that I want to study. And apparently, the way it works is that we had a new moon, we had a full moon in Gemini today, so that will depend on where it is in your chart. And so full moons are about things coming to fruition, or it's a culmination of things that started previously. So I used to think that it was from the last new moon until this full moon, right? However, it's really from the last new moon in Gemini, which apparently was in June. So things that you're planting seeds for, things that you are trying to do around that time period. So look at what was going on in June in your life, and this full moon can bring like culmination. It's a time period about tying up loose ends related to those things, stuff like that. And so that is going on, and we're in like Sagittarius time period. There's like Mercury is getting ready to go retrograde. Soon we're in the shadow aspect, as they call it. So it means Mercury is slowing down. And so, yeah. So Mercury is a planet about communication, things like that. And so you may be starting to have difficulty related to communication. And I don't know, it just feels like there's a lot of sort of like chaos going on out there, and it's a lot of energy about being prone to it feels like there's a lot of stuff that's being prone to like daydreaming about things. But it's interesting because this is a full moon, right? So things are ending, but we're also going to be going in a couple of weeks, right? We're going to be going into a new moon, and Spirit is talking about, yeah, this full moon is happening, things are wrapping up, right? And full moons, like we usually say, like 3 days before, 3 days after, right? But this full moon could be affecting you really for the next like few weeks, right? So there is that happening, and so you really kind of have to look at where Gemini is in your chart, and then you can kind of see what is happening in that house. So I'm not doing an astrology report, things like that. And sometimes, like, I try to talk about things that I've heard on several channels that I watch, which are really good. and it just feels like it can be kind of, the things that I've heard about things can just really be a little bit of a struggle, right? So it's what I refer to as a push pull kind of thing. Like, I want this, I don't want it, I want it, I don't want it. And so we're going to see what's going on with you, the way that I work, right? So, all right, Spirit, show me what we have to say the for the collective, for the sign of Leo. And today is November 27th. It's 10 p.m. or somewhere around there. I didn't exactly check. Oh, it's 10:30, 10:29, which is the 3, comes out to a 3. So this is a time period which can be very creative. And I will say I've been trying to do this video for the past few days, and I've just been really anxious about things. And so I tend to procrastinate when things get all like angsty for me. And what I've learned over the years is that it really just means that there is a lot of energy going out there. And as a little like side note, I've been wanting to use the word iconic for some reason or another. I've been seeing like videos and people say that, right? And it's like, who better to say that to than a Leo, right? It's like, oh, like, you're iconic, right? So whatever, got that out of my system. So we're gonna see. I just have a feeling that there's a lot of things that are trying to manifest. Things have been kind of like bubbling up, and I'm being shown here that really, Leo, um, there are things that have been going on really for the past 2 years, and I'm being shown like February time period. So this is 23, 22, 21. I would say look at whatever it is that was going on in February of 2021, um, because I have a feeling that there are things that are trying to manifest, um, like around this time, between now and this February coming up, things that you've been trying to do, things you've been trying to start, whatever. And it's like, why isn't this happening? Right. And so you can start seeing things starting to manifest between now and like this February coming up. So there is that is going on. Okay, so what this is all right. So as you can see, runes are stones. They have symbols on them. Each rune has a story. Each rune has a myth that is connected to it. And so we're going to talk about what that is and how they kind of work together, right? So this rune over here, so we have like north, south, east, west, right? West is about water, it's emotions, right? So emotions may be like hidden from you, right? And trying to close off things because this is reverse, right? So we're talking about how things can be trying to like close off emotional situations from your past, right? But you do have this rune is called, I have a difficult time like saying the name, so I don't whatever. Anyway, it's related to the sun, and this rune represents the end of a karmic cycle, right? So it is a rune that also brings up things related to healing, and so you're moving into a time period about healing. The east is about new beginnings, and it's air, so it is related to communication. So thinking, talking, um, things related to healing, and also thinking about completing a cycle as far as like whatever your karma has been about, right? And it's really interesting because you have this rune up here. It's called Rido. It represents your journey, right? Not There are 3 different runes. One represents the self, one represents the vehicle by which you move through life, and then one represents the actual journey. And you have this rune, which represents it represents a dice cup. This is karma. And so it's like you're dealing a lot here with karma related to your journey, right? But you also have this rune, um, which represents information. It represents gifts from your ancestors, right? But it's interesting because you have your personal karma here. This rune represents family karma, right? And so this has a lot to do with things that are related to your family, right? Your family karma, your journey with your family, how you're healing from things, right? That could be related from your family, and closing off things that have been emotional difficulties, right? That have been related to that. So this rune, very interesting. This rune represents a torch, right? Represents wisdom. So it's like what this says to me is that you've learned, right? It's a rune that represents, it's the torch, it's wisdom, right? It's the light that you're shining on things, right? So it's like you've already looked at all these things, and so it's like now you're being done with it, right? So which is full moon, right? We're talking about wrapping things up. We're talking about ending situations, right? So this is the last rune that is related to karma, right? So a, a lot, like you have like three different runes here that represent karma, right? And so you have a karmic cycle, you have karma that's related to this, and then you have like your family karma. Usually when this rune shows up, it would have to do with how you are, um, it would bring up how you are participating in your family karma, right? Like, so you want to look at whether you are participating in a positive way or a negative way connected to your family, right? So, and I just want to say that this does not mean that you have to be like good with your family. It doesn't mean that you have to, be connected to your family, everything like that, right? I'm just saying that because I'm not connected to my family at all. And but what it does mean is that it's important that in your life that you were doing positive things, right? Because it really be like, if you're doing positive things in your own journey, then that is also affecting your family karma, right? So it's like separate but also connected. Um, it's kind of like, if you're, if your if your family history is that they have been horse thieves, right? And then you decide you don't want to be a horse thief, right? Then you're disconnecting from all of those people, right? And now it's like, okay, I'm going to breed horses and I'm going to raise them and I'm going to, take care of horses, stuff like that, or I'm going to like donate things for like horse farms and things like that, right? Then you're creating more positive karma for your family, right? So it's kind of like that kind of situation, right? So I'm not saying that the thing has to be the same, right? Whatever your family has been doing, like, and they may have positive karma, right? I'm not saying that everybody's family is a horse thief, right? They could be all like healers, therapists, they could be doctors, right? They could be doing a lot of like positive things, right? But it still means that you could be receiving positive things from your family karma, right? But it means also looking at whether you are like holding up your end as well, right? But this does look like there are some positive things here that are trying to happen for you, right? Based on like letting things go, right? If you have had, where are these balloons? Like, do you see the balloons? Like, leave a comment if you just saw those balloons, right? I updated my iPad and now there are like balloons that come up. They're like if I put my thumb up, then a lot of times there'll be like a thumb up in my screen, right? And so it's making a liar out of me. Whatever. I don't know, weirds me out sometimes. Something, I don't know, trying to make that happen. Anyway, back to your story, Leo. So there are things that are trying to happen here for you. And so we'll see what's going to happen here. All right. Let's see. Need a bigger bag for these ones. Okay. So you have this rune up here that talks about, this is the rune that represents your journey, right? This is the vehicle by which you move through life, right? And you have this rune here, which talks about, it's a rune that talks about protection, right? Also things that are related to children. So you're completing this cycle here a lot around, well, all right, and it's interesting because you have this rune again, and you have this rune again, right? So it's like there's a lot of this still talks about the vehicle by which you're moving through life is related to this whole healing connected to your family karma. So apparently there have been some negative traits that are passed down, and you have been protected, right? Or you have done things to protect yourself or to protect others, right? However that is playing out in your life, right? But there are a lot of things that are showing up here around how you are moving forward in this direction. You have this rune here in the south, which is it's related to fire, right? This is the section that has to do with it's fire, so it can be related to protection, it's leadership, it's like self-esteem things, it's anything that is related to fire, right? And so this rune is about messages from it's messages from your ancestors, right? So it's sitting here in the south, so it's like they are trying to talk to you, right? It's closed, so it means that you're not necessarily listening, right? But you do have these like ancestors around you that are trying to help you, that are trying to protect you as you're moving forward, right? So this is a big thing that has to do with you having to basically kind of like watch your step as far as you're moving forward here in your life, right? And I'm not saying like watch your step because like like manhole cover stuff like that, whatever, you're gonna fall through, like those kinds of things, right? But it's like I just want to say that I try not to um, I mean, that sounds like really like kind of vague, but um, Leo, that the house of Leo in astrology, it is about children. It is about I don't know, my brain just has like so many things trying to like run through it and trying to like I have like 5 different people trying to talk in my head right now. So I think we're just gonna kind of like um can be related to family, it can be related to like children, it can be related to um it can be things that are related to like fun things, how you're doing that, right? All that kind of stuff. Um, but this to me, I just want to look more at what it is that I'm being presented with here. Because like I said, I'm not an astrologer, so I don't want to give out like inaccurate information that people leave like negative comments in my thing, right? So, but this does talk about how there's like you do have this rune which talks about it's a new beginning in the karmic cycle, right? This rune represents disruption, right? And it is a rune that brings up things for their past. It's a rune that is connected to the fates, right? In the first three runes of the karmic cycle represent the fates, the past, present, future. This represents the past, so it's about disruption of the past, right? So because you have seen things that have gone on here that you didn't really like, it's like there's a disruption, right? It's like there's a whole change, right? Which is creating a positive cycle here for you, right? This rune shows up reversed, right? This rune represents the world tree. It represents as above, so below, right? This rune, when it comes up, it does specifically talk about people that are healers, whether they are shaman. I call it the mark of the shaman. So whether the person is a shaman, whether they're a therapist, whether they, whatever kind of healer they are, right? So, but this also brings up this rune represents the yew tree, right? So we will bring up things that are connected to Christmas, right? Because the Christmas tree, right, really represents the world tree, right? All the ornaments on the Christmas tree, right? They represent various worlds, is what they represent, right? So it's new information for you. Welcome. So, but that's what this represents. So we're going to talk about how between now, like Christmas time, right? So December 25th, right? That's that would be like the Yule holiday, right? So we're talking about how there can be more clarity coming up around you, how you're dealing with things, processing things, right? There can be a lot of disruption around like you, your family, stuff like that, right? In terms of like karma, right? And so you may find out things because this is the rune that represents a torch, represents wisdom, right? So you may be finding out things about your path in life, about your journey, about your relationship with your family between now and Christmas time too. So so I would just say like be aware of that. Right. And this room represents, they call it like sedge grass. That's what this room represents. So it's like, that really like heavy thick grass that's at the beach, right? That's at the ocean, the stuff that you cut yourself on, right? If you're not careful walking through it barefoot, right? This room represents that kind of grass, right? And then you have two runes here that represent the sun, right? So we're just going to say, and this is the vehicle by which you move through life, right? So we're bringing up issues here or things that are connected to water, emotions, right? Whenever I see water, right, especially like the oceans, I see things that represent emotions, right? And the bigger the tide, the bigger the emotion, right? So you're going to be looking at how you are processing things here that have to do with your emotions. This is going to be a completion of a cycle here emotionally. And this could also bring up, this could also possibly even bring up travel to oceans, to waters, things like that, right? Because you do have this room here that represents the journey, right? But so we can look at like things related to travel here. And this room represents a horse cart. So the vehicle, right? So there could very well be things that are related to like travel here, especially things related to water, to emotional places, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be to the ocean, but it could be to big emotional releases, right? And which is going to be good, especially if you've been like holding on to a lot of things here, right? So, like I said, it did feel like this was going to be like a big thing. So that's what that is all about. So we're going to move on to the next thing that we're going to look into here. Where we're going to put these. Okay. Right now. So we're going to look at these cards here. These are actually the shaman's dream. Shaman's dream, beautiful. So I'm going to see what these have to say for you. And so we're looking at things that represent the general energies for what is happening with Leo. Spirit is talking about how Leo is trying to gain independence. And in my head, I try to have this conversation with them about, like, Leo is always trying to gain independence. Leo is ruled by the sun, right? So everything revolves around Leo. And so I feel like they're always trying to be independent in whatever it is that they're doing. So, so we'll see. Show us what we have to say for the sign of Leo. Show us what we have to say for the sign of Leo, Spirit. Okay, see what we have. That's funny. So I put cards out here earlier when I was setting up to make sure that I had enough room in my space here. And this is the card that showed up there. It says the galactic mushroom. And I don't know if you can see it or if it's reversed for you. It says the divine matrix. So this does look to me like it has to do with some sort of like blossoming going on here. There's a birthing that is trying to happen, right? And it's the same thing in that movie, right? Of this name, right? It's like kind of coming out of your shell and coming into a place of reality, right? So caterpillar, so there are opportunities. So caterpillar is it's an interesting card because it is a card about transformation, right? And so this card does represent like opportunities for you. So as reality is setting in here, there are different kinds of opportunities that come up around you, right? And opportunities for what? Wandering between the realms, right? And so it's called like straddling the worlds, right? And I tell people that as a witch, what we do is that we straddle between the worlds of reality and also spirit. So there's going to be more, I think that for you, Leo, I think that there is going to be more kinds of like spirit kind of connection. I would tell you not to be surprised if you have like more dream time, right? This can bring up things that are related to shadow work as well, right? This is a 5 and a 2, right? 5 and 2 is 7. So there's 7 is a card that has to do with moving forward, but 5 is a number of change. 2 is relationships, right? So you could very well be going through a lot of changes here as far as your relationships are concerned, right? But wandering between realms, right, that can also bring up things that are talking about like this faction of your life and this faction of your life over here. We have work, we have home, we have like family, we have like social people over here, right? And so like you may start like trying to mix things, people from one area of your life trying to go into another area of your life, like that kind of a thing, right? And meditation and stillness. So this is going to bring up a big time period for you. This is 11. 11 is a major karma number, new beginnings here, right? And so remember I said about like dream time, right? Like meditation, stillness, right? That's all connected. So this is going to be a big time where it can be important for you to like sit with yourself, right? Meditation is a practice. It's about sitting with yourself and kind of be like, what it is that's happening with me, what's reality, what's not reality, right? And there's a big thing that's happening with not Neptune. Neptune is a planet about illusion, and so it's being connected to this like new moon, right? And which is in Gemini, right? So very mercurial, right? So I was watching this thing here that talks about how there can be things where things are not necessarily what they seem to be, right? So you may have to take time and kind of sit with yourself so you can kind of see what's what. Right? So many masks, right? The authentic self, right? So again, we're bringing up this thing about things not being as they seem, and so you come into a place where you're finding out more about who you are. And it's interesting because the last reading that I did, and a lot of the readings that I've done recently, are having to do with people finding this rune represents the authentic. This card here is about the authentic self, right? It's a 3 and an 8, which is also an 11, right? So a lot of creativity, things like that around like money, finances, things like that. But 8 is also a number of karma. So, and so 3 is our community, their celebration, it's all about that kind of stuff. So there can be celebration when you're finding out more about who you are and what your place is in the world, is what Spirit is telling me. So, sorry, like I said, I start on one track and then Spirit jumps in and kind of like usurps the conversation. I end up getting hijacked. So, sorry if I'm like talking about one thing and then going off on another thing. When I do a reading, I'm not really in charge. I like to think that I'm in charge of something, but I'm really not. So, but there is going to be a lot of stuff that goes on here about, you coming into the reality about who you are, shedding your skin, right? Like here, this caterpillar card, right? So caterpillar moving into the butterfly, right? So it's like, your past life blending into your present life, into your future life. And it's like, who do you want to be? And who are you coming from being, right? Who are you in your past? So it's like those kinds of things happening too, those straddling those two realms. So if you feel like you're going through an ascension process, right, raising your vibration, and that's what I call it, like an ascension, raising your vibration is all the same thing to me. Sometimes you may have to let go of people, whether those people are family, whether they are friends, whether they are, whoever they are. If you feel like these people are weighing you down, right, then, you may think that you can straddle these two realms, right? The past and the present, right? The lower vibration and the higher vibration, right? You may think that you can live in both of those realms, but you can't, right? It's going to be very painful if you're trying to do that, right? This is why it's important that you're taking time, like stillness meditation, right? Finding your authentic self, because this is going to help you to raise your vibration. It is going to help you to be more in a place of your karma, new beginnings over here, right? And this is being a really I do feel like I'm kind of like all over the place, but it's because I have like 10 different people in my head trying to talk right now, and everybody's vying for a space in line to try to talk to you all. So it just feels to me like there are a lot of different areas of your life being affected right now, right? And because you're talking about a lot of like death and rebirth happening with you, right? So we won't be surprised if the death card does show up, because it is about doors closing, new doors opening, right? And that's what we're talking about here with this ascension process going on here, right? And this like Gemini thing, right? Gemini is about like the inner world and the outer world, right? So we are talking about those two different realms there, right? The inside of yourself and then the outside of yourself, and the things that you want to keep private and the things that you want to have public, right? So we're talking about how there are things that are happening on the inside, right? Which we talked about when we were looking at the runes. And so there are things that are going to be secrets that are being revealed, right? Things that are being revealed about you, whether you are revealing them or whether other people in your life are revealing them, right? And so there can be people being put in your face, coming in your face and saying like, hey, like what about this about you? What about this about you? What about this about you? Right? So it can be uncomfortable, which brings up the the H. It's called Hagala. It's the rune that represents disruption. So it can definitely bring up uncomfortable feelings. It can be disruption around your authentic self, right? You thinking that you're one person, and then you're coming to a place here where you're realizing like that's not really who I am. This is who I am. And so then there's healing that has to take place around that, right? Because if you think that you are, this amazing person, and then somebody's coming up around you and saying, well, like, no, you're not, like this, and this, right? Then like a lot of times I kind of joke with my friends and be like, oh, well, now you have to forgive yourself, right? So you may have to forgive yourself about who you are, who you were in the past, and remember, if somebody's bringing something up to you, right, that is something that is connected to your past, right? And like I said, you're sitting here and you're trying to close doors to your past and trying to move forward. I'm trying to be this other person, right? But you're going to have to kind of let go of a bunch of stuff. Meditation is great for letting go. Like I do a lot of Reiki on myself. And so like that's how I do a lot of this kind of like letting go. It's how I do a lot of like healing and things like that. And so yeah, there's a lot of this to me. Spirit is bringing me these places here about you're going through a big kind of like detox, right? And it may not necessarily be a detox related to like drugs, but it can be a big kind of like emotional detox. And um, you know, it's you want to just kind of be wary about people thinking that they know you, right? Because like I am being told that there are going to be people that like that come up around you, right? People thinking that they know who you are, people making assumptions about you, saying like, oh, like you're this, right? But it's like they don't really know you, right? So it's like you don't want to be giving those people your attention, right? It's like leave those people be, right? You want to protect yourself, like we said, and you want to kind of like just when we're talking about protecting yourself, right? We're talking about not taking on somebody else's view of you, right? So thank you, Spirit, for clarifying a lot of information for us. It's good when they do jump in. When I start hearing all these people in my head, I have to kind of stop, pay attention, and kind of listen and let them come through because they're trying to make clarification for things. So, what messages do we have here for the sign of Leo? What do we have to say here? What do we have to say? Show us what you have to say for the sign of Leo. What are these? So there's new ideas coming up here for you. Great. So you have the Ace of Swords, you have the Hierophant card. Ace of Swords is about new ideas. It can be new beginnings on an intellectual level, right? The Hierophant card can bring up things connected to school, education, things like that, right? So if you might have been thinking about where you want to go to school, what you want to do as far as that is concerned, right? Then you may be rethinking things, right? And but this card here, the Hierophant card, is about a spiritual teacher in general, right? That's really what it means. And so like you may be having like new guides coming in around you, which can be good, but it means that you can have to figure out how they're speaking to you too. So there's new information that's coming here through whatever kind of spirit kind of communication, education, things like that. This is also a card that can bring up things related to tradition as well, right? So you could be redefining what traditions mean to you, right? This is the rune Hagalaz, right? It's a tower, right? That's what that rune represents, right? Disruption. So this is a tearing down in order to rebuild. There's a major reorganization going on around you, right? A lot of times I tell people that the tower is happening for you, not to you, right? But it is a major reorganization going on around your life. It is a tearing down in order to rebuild, right? And I tell people, right, it's like, like I said, there can be a lot of changes here that are happening connected to tradition, spirit coming in, hijacking you like they just did me, right? And like reality setting in, right? Disruption. So the tower card usually happens on the inside first and then on the outside, right? So you can be going through a lot of changes internally, and then you know you start going through things, putting out a different vibe, right? So then that's going to start affecting things going on around you, right? So it can be new emotional beginnings trying to happen here. It's not the Ace of Cups, right? But it's like you can be having a conflict about what you're doing emotionally connected to, like, because you have the Page of Cups, you have the Page of Pentacles. They're heading two different directions, right? One is about emotions, one is about money, right? Your career, your future, things like that, right? And this is, you have two different cards here that bring up things connected to school, education, stuff like that, right? So that is definitely something that could be coming up here in the forefront. Pages are like new information. They do talk about communication here. So like a lot of changes happening around your life, communication around what you're doing emotionally, things connected to communication around what you're doing like financially, right? So I think you're going to have to do something here where you're going to have to try to reconcile what those two things are about, right? Because it is talking about how, remember I said earlier about like, oh, I want to be in charge of something, right? We have the Hierophant card. Hierophant card is ruled by the sign of Aries, right? This is a card that can bring up things connected to like government, institutions, banks, things like that, right? Major institutions, stuff like that. And but in general, it is a card that also can bring up things connected to the father side of the family, right? Whoever the control person is in your life, things like that. But this to me looks like it looks to me like you're trying to go into some sort of position where you are trying to be in control, right? To me, this is a 4, and so it is about, this is a number about stability, right? So it's like no matter what it is that's going on here, you're going through all these changes here so you can become more stable in your life, so that you can become the emperor in your own life, right? So it just looks like there's a lot of things here that are trying to work out, trying to balance out, right? These like internal kind of like struggles trying to happen here, right? But you are gaining new information that's leading you to this place of of contemplation, of places where, it's kind of interesting because it's like when you're having new information, people say knowledge is power, right? So it's like if you're coming from this place here where you thought things were one way and now you're finding out that things are actually another way, right? Then you're coming into this place here where you are moving into positions that are allowing you to take more control over your life, right? So there can be a lot of changes here, disruption around like your school, around your career, stuff like that, right? Um, could be like some sort of like cultural conflicts too, right? Um, things that you believed, and then now I don't believe that anymore, and so now I'm believing this, right? So new ideas again, like we have this Eight of Wands here, which is a kind of about communication. So thinking about a bunch of choices that you have going on here, right? And trying to hold on to things, right? I will tell you this, right? They when spirit is trying to remove things out of your life, right? Because that's what the tower is, right? If you're sitting here trying to hold on to things, it's going to be really, really painful, right? What did we say earlier, right? We said like you're trying to do this ascension process and there are people holding you back, right? You trying to hold on to these people, it is not going to do you any good, right? You holding on to your past when you're trying to move forward doesn't work, right? It really doesn't. It just really creates like a lot of pain for you, right? So, and I will say this, that the Four of Pentacles also is a card that comes up connected to making changes around your house as well, right? Usually it is a card that has to do with trying to hold on to money, saving money, things like that, right? But it also is a card that shows up connected to um, if you're trying to make changes around your home, meaning like I talk about it in terms of like changing curtains, moving furniture. It can be kind that comes up connected to construction, things like that, right? So especially with the Tower card here, it could bring up things that you're talking about changing where it is that you live too, right? Especially if there is some sort of like construction or things have to be changed in the house that you're living in. And so I'm not really liking this place anymore, right? Maybe it's like all these choices that could come up here, thinking about all the choices, right? It's like, well, maybe we could fix this up, maybe we can fix that, or maybe we can fix that up. It's like, I don't know if I really want to do that. Maybe it's better if we just go to a different place, right? So, hello, death card, right? Doors closing, new doors opening. High priestess, spirit leading you the right direction, and your wish. So awesome. Um, resources here, thinking about the resources that you have, right? Again, the three, right? Celebration, Three of Cups, card about celebration. Things are really going to be in it's important that you, again, the big three, Empress, right? Creativity. We have the Empress and we have the Emperor, divine pairing, right? Sometimes those two cards come up and they can be connected to like battle of the sexes, right? But it's in this particular case, it can be, right, we're talking about like emotions and also money over here, right? So this is a thing that can come up connected to I'm battling against the male side of myself and the female side of myself. The emotions versus the intellect, the emotions versus my creativity versus my actions, right? And because everybody has male and female energy in them. So it depends on what it is that you want to do, right? Especially this is a very creative time period, right? So we are talking about, right, celebration here. We're talking about creative energy, right? So it's we'll bring up this like Four of Pentacles here, right? Which we're talking about making changes around the home. Do I want to like do a makeover, right? And so this is kind of ruled by Venus. So I would see where Venus is in your chart and see what kind of things are trying to have some sort of a makeover, right? Because this is Venus and this is Mars. So that is, those are like, Mars is male energy, Venus is female energy, right? So we are talking about battle of the sexes here. We're talking about, internally too, right? We're not just talking about, you know, like rivals outside. We're talking about inside, right? And so you're sitting here trying to hold on to things, right? It's like, this to me feels like you've been harboring, like, you could very well have been harboring a lot of resentments, a lot of things that are coming to light now, and like explosion, right? And so trying to figure out where it is that you're going, right? And again, it's like things are trying to, there's a lot of letting go here that has to happen, right? Yeah, this card here, Seven of Pentacles, it's kind of fear of failure, right? But there is prosperity that's trying to happen here for you, right? King of Cups, right? Which can be with the High Priestess here. This is a card that can represent a male person who has passed away, somebody with male energy. The cards show up according to energy, not necessarily according to sex, right? Because I don't know you personally, I can't say for you that it is an actual male or female, right? But it would be somebody that would have more male energy and somebody who is very much more in control of their emotions, right? And so there is that. But your wishes here about being more in control, right? So there is going to be more balance that is showing up around here. And when you do achieve this sense of balance, when you are in this place where it's like, okay, like I've done all this stuff, but I think that this is going to be, so I think that this is something that has been going on probably since like June time period, right? But I feel like this is a process that is taking place between this past June into December of next year, right? I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that is going on here, right? Usually I tell people that, this is going to be a reading for this week, right? But I'm not in charge, right? Spirit shows me these things, so I talk about what it is that I see, right? So this is a card that represents Capricorn time period, right? So you may be getting new ideas by talking to somebody that is an earth sign, specifically somebody that is a Capricorn. It is new information, right? And so it's like there are a lot of choices here that are happening, but through conversation with whoever this person is that has resources for you, right? That's Queen of Pentacles, somebody who has resources for you, somebody who has information about money, finances, things like that. But whatever the resources are, right? It's like it's leading you into this different direction around here and propelling you into this kind of like creative energy over here. All right, so we have like Three of Cups and we have the Empress card here, right? It's like these are cards that can come up connected to like children. So there could very well be people who are like trying to have children around here, right? And I will just say this, that if this is interesting, all right. So cards can be read different ways, right? And so I'm looking at this thing here that talks about like pregnancy, right? And also the Tower card, right? So there could be some sort of like difficulty. There could be some sort of question here around like, do you want to go down that path or not go down to that path, right? Like, how am I gonna like save money, right? How am I gonna like do this? And do I want to like wait, right? Do I want to, this is about holding on to things, right? So it's like, do I want to hold on to my eggs? Do I want to hold on to like, like male, female, right? Like sperm donor, egg donor, right? So do I want to like hold on to these things or I want to wait, right? And so this talks about that there can be some, and especially because if there's a cultural thing that says, like, oh, we should be having like children now, right? At this time period, right? It's like, no, like I want to wait. I don't want to do this, right? It's like, oh, like I want to do my career instead, right? And like, so, there are a lot of choices that look like it's coming up around this, right? And it's like, you're really going to have to do what it is that you want to do, right? Because if you don't, the tower card is going to show up, right? The world is changing, right? A lot of things that um, represent like culture beliefs, things like that. There's a lot of stuff that goes on here about like rethinking these things, right? And trying to like juggle the inside with the outside, right? And so this is a time period really about like self-reflection and what do you want to do for you, right? And and if you're in a relationship, it's not just about like you, the wife, or you, the husband, right? But the it would be like the husband and the wife, right? It's like you making these choices like together, as opposed to you doing what your parents want you to do. Right? So like, sue me, that's just what it is that I'm being shown here, right? And so because there can be a lot of conflict that is like showing up around here, right? Especially if you are um showing up here as like the female, and like I want to do things as far as like my career is concerned and stuff, because I don't know if I'm going to have time later, right? It's like, so you want to do both. Right? It just, to me, this just says that there's like conflict going on around here. However, you're going to be talking to somebody who will be able to lead you through this. So, you know, because we're talking about not holding on to your emotions, right? We are talking about like communicating with somebody who has resources. So, and resources may be information, right? We have the Ace of Swords here, right? So we are talking about information. So the resources may not necessarily be money. The resources may be somebody who has been through this situation before, right? And somebody who has explored all the choices, and so they can help you, right, through your path, right? So especially if there is like the high priestess can represent like a spiritual advisor, a counselor, people like that, right? It's also, it can be a businesswoman, things like that. But you are moving into this. You are moving into this thing here where you are moving into positions of control. You have your wish, right? And so as things like settle here, right, and you may be waiting to have kids like until you move, right? You may have to figure out where you're going to land before you have kids as well, right? So that, because that's part of like the resources, right? Is like your home, having the place, things like that, right? But as things settle down here after you're making these big choices, right? Because this feels like you're going through a lot of big choices between now and the middle of December. So I think once we get into the middle of December, that a lot of these big things are going to settle down, right? And then it's like you'll be able to move forward here. There can be more things coming in around you, right? There can be more things that are connected to pleasure. There can be more things coming in here that are, it's like, okay, now I know what I'm doing, right? So the Knight of Swords is a card that can be about like a rush of information coming in at you, right? And so it's like, okay, like I'm not ready to deal with all of that yet, right? It's like I really would have to sort out all of this stuff, right? I have all these emotional choices trying to happen around here. And like I just have to get these things like sorted out, right? It's like my head is so full of all of these things. And which is what happens as an empath, right? It's like I was just having all this stuff going on in my head, right? And so sometimes that's a message from spirit that says that you have all of these things going on in your head, right? Welcome to my world. it's like as an empath, like I have to pay attention to how I feel. I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine earlier. Whenever I'm doing a reading with somebody, there are things that happen with me that are not necessarily about me, that they are about the person I'm doing the reading for, right? So I'm having all this stuff going on in my head. You could very well be having all of this stuff going on in your head, 5 different voices running around your head. And so the way to process that is to be still, is to meditate, is to slow down, is to take time, let spirit bring you the information, new ideas through spiritual communication, right? Sometimes that happens through journals, right? I spent a lot of time like writing, right? This is communication, right? Communication can be writing, it can be speaking, and it can be thinking, right? Thinking, speaking, writing. So it's like you could write about all the choices that you have rather than holding on to them. And so as you're writing about things, you can go through this big transformation, right? Spirit will be able to guide you through this process, and then you will be able to identify what your actual wish is about, right? Because the wish is not just about like, oh, I have this thing that I want, right? Oh, I wish this, right? It's like whatever you're putting out there, um, whatever you put out is what you get back. So whatever you're thinking about, that becomes the wish, right? If you think that you can do something and you're all about it, that becomes the wish. If you don't think that you can do something, that becomes the wish, right? So pay attention. 9 of Cups is also completion of emotional cycle, right? And that's what that room, the sun was about, right? We're talking about completion of a karmic cycle. So let's see if you can get like a couple of other messages for you here. So Spirit, show us what we have to say here for the sign of Leo. I don't know where the Temperance card is, but you really do want to be patient with what it is that's happening, right? Because I do think that Mars is going into Sagittarius. We are in Sagittarius time period. There's a lot of fire going on here, right? And I'm just bringing that up because Spirit says that there can be a lot of like anger issues going on around here, right? So, and it doesn't necessarily mean that like, you know, you've been angry for your whole life. We're not talking about those kind of anger, but it could be something that's like showing up here that is kind of like pissing you off about something. So sorry. But you know, it's like you want to make sure that you are venting in the right way, right? In a way that is not just like lashing out at the world, right? And this is one of the reasons why like journaling, talking to somebody who has information, you know, asking somebody for help is going to be able to help you to process all of that stuff going on, right? So what do we have to say here for the sign of Leo? Okay, I guess we're going to do these here. Trying to balance things. Right. So like we said, right, there's a lot of juggling going on here. And like we said, 4 of Swords, taking the time out, right? This is all about like weighing your options, right? Usually this is all about like juggling money, finances, things like that, right? But it can be a lot about like juggling things in terms of choices, stuff like that. So again, we have the 4 of Swords, which is taking the time out, right? Queen of Pentacles twice, right? Taking the time out and looking at what your resources are, right? Not just about what other people have as far as resources, right? But you know, weighing pros and cons about what your resources are and how you can best utilize them, right? Queen of Cups. It's interesting. You have the Page of Cups over here. You have the Page of Pentacles over here, right? Cups, Pentacles. You have the Queen of Pentacles over here. You have the Queen of Cups over here, right? So still same thing, right? Only it's a bigger cycle, right? So it's a different kind of maturity level going on here. I was wondering if the Wheel of Fortune would show up, right? The Wheel of Fortune does talk about things going on, going round and round. It is about trying to move forward in a better direction, right? We did have the runes that represent karma, right? Wheel of Fortune is all about karma, right? And again, we have the Eight of Wands over here. The Eight of Wands was in the first spread under there, right? So the Eight of Wands is also a card that can talk about things going swiftly, right? So, Two of Swords, Two of Pentacles, right? Again, trying to make choices here, trying to balance things. Knight of Cups, moving forward on an emotional level, right? You want to take time out for yourself, balance things, make choices, right? I usually see the Two of Swords as a kind of about separation, right? And this is about the new moon, right? So it's like you've been doing a lot of like juggling, a lot of balancing things in your life since the new moon that happened in June time period, right? So it's like you're trying to be able to move forward here in a more emotional way, right? Knight of Swords twice, right? So information coming in here related to whatever your resources are about. And I think that once you are sure about what your resources are, right, then you're able to take more action, and it's like things will be able to move more swiftly for you, right? But it does feel to me like things are on hold, because, and it's really something, like I said, things are happening for you, not to you. So if things have been on hold, it's really because Spirit is trying, and I hate this, right? I just want to say, like, I hate when the universe has things on hold for me. I want it now, right? Talk about a control issue, right? So, but Spirit is trying to help you here, right? It's like, so the things can be on hold here while you're figuring out your resources, right? And seeing where you want to be, what you want to do, all this kind of stuff, right? And then things will be able to move forward in a better way from there, right? King of Wands, which is King of Wands is like fire, right? He is about who's in charge, right? This is, we are doing a reading for Leo, right? And so this is a card that is ruled by Leo, right? So it's you showing up in your own reading, you being able to be yourself, right? Taking charge, like I said, right? But there is chaos here, right? Which is interesting because it's not necessarily about there being like chaos going on. They like usually when I see the Five of Wands, chaos usually represents like trying to sort things out around your life, things like that, right? But we are talking about how things can start coming in here for you, right? So it's like, so it can feel kind of chaotic once you have things sorted out, right? It can be chaos in your head, right? But then as you're sorting things out and moving things, and things are going to start coming in now that you're able to make clearer choices around your life, right? Then it's like, okay, what do I have to do now with these new things that are coming in, right? So, and you do have this world cut here, and so there can be communication here with people from other countries, or whether they're in an actual other country, or whether they are in this country, but like from other countries, right? But the world card also is a card that talks about like recognition, right? And so you have the Emperor card up there, right? People who are in charge, right? So this can be you talking to people who are in charge, who recognize you for your talents, right? Because we're talking about your resources here. We are talking about you ascending. We are talking about you, like, you know, stepping up here. We're talking about how you're moving into a different place and like making a lot of changes around what it is that you're doing here, connected to your relationships, connected to your work, right? With the Death card and the Tower card, the Hierophant card, these are things, and the Wheel of Fortune and the World, right? When we see major arcana cards, we look at things how they can those are things that can affect really like every area of your life, right? So this does look like, because you have these major arcana cards here, and they are things that are going to affect really like all areas of your life, right? Because of the choices that you're making, and especially because we're talking about sweeping changes that you're doing in terms of your life right now too. So it's like huge. We did just go through Scorpio time period, which death card is ruled by Scorpio, right? So we just went through this big Scorpio change, right? Scorpio period, which is all about changes and things like that. So I think that whatever changes it is that you went through in that time period, especially with SAD showing up right now, Spirit is saying that those things can try to take more full effect, even though it's like, like, oh, I want to make this change, this change, but it's like things aren't really where they need to be right now. Sorry, I live near a hospital. You may, like I said, you may want to make this change, that change, the other change, right? But things are on hold right now, which can be a little bit aggravating, right? But it's like you may want to make this change, that change, other change, but things are not really in place right yet, right? But things are moving forward. I think that we're going to probably have to get through this Mercury retrograde, because I am looking at things happening when we get into in towards the, I think that's going to be more like the middle of January. So I think things are trying to move forward, and they can like a little bit, right? But Mercury retrograde does not mean to stop, right? It doesn't mean that everything is on hold, right? But it does mean like take time, right? Be in control, right? Talk to somebody who knows information, right? We're talking about people who have resources, right? And so if you do have to sign contracts, things like that, right? Then you want to make sure that you have somebody that can read the fine print. If you're not a lawyer, right? Like read the fine print, dot your I's, cross your T's, wherever, right? They say it's not a good idea to buy things that are connected to communication, like laptops, phones, things like that, anything with electricity. If you are going to travel places, right, then it can bring up delays, stuff like that. So you want to kind of take time, right? It's kind of like, even if you're expecting delays, expect more delays. So it's like trying to be patient with yourself, right? Spirit told me before to say, be patient while you're being practice patience while you're practicing patience. Right? So I'm gonna pull another couple of cards just to kind of wrap things up here, and see what it is. That's what. Okay. So the Magician card. There are 3 magicians in this deck, and this magician is about Mercury. The magician is ruled by Mercury, right? So it is about communication. It is about how you have the resources, right? So because it means that you have all the tool, right? Because the magician wields the pentacles, the swords, the cups, and the wands, right? So you are gaining here the resources. So you may very well be trying to juggle your resources, figure out how you're going to utilize them, right? How you're going to utilize them in the best way, right? So Ten of Swords is about an ending, right? It can be a lot of like stress, right? And it's interesting because it does represent the sun in Gemini. We have that full moon in Gemini, right? So there can be a lot of kind of duality going on, stuff like that. But like the Ten of Swords is called the Lord of Ruin, and I usually use it as like thinking that everything is going to fall apart, thinking that everything is going to turn to crap, right? So, but it's like you have all of the resources. So it's like it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is going to fall apart, right? But the tower is sitting up there, so and we do have the death card, so there can be an ending, right? But sometimes I tell people it's like are things falling apart or are they falling together, right? So it's not necessarily a bad card, even though the Ten of Swords usually is a bad rap. So it's really a lot of stress, right? Or potential as far as a lot of stress. This to me says that it's not required stress, right? Because you have a tool that's like take time out, and you may not want to take time out. You may want things to kind of like, I want to do this now, right? It's like, I want to do this now, right? But you can't, right? Because it's not really like time yet. Things have to kind of come together and everything like that, right? Queen of Swords says to be clear about who you are, what it is that you're doing, things like that. This guy's ruled by the goddess Athena, and she is about like um Athena is about strategies, right? So as you're moving forward here, you're gonna want to be strategic in terms of how you're going forward here. Taking problems to bed with you at night, a lot of sleep disturbance. This is going to be about how you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. Unfortunately, that's how that's going to be, right? There can be interference that shows up around you as well. Again, Hierophant card twice, right? So you want to listen to information that's coming from your intuition, from like spirit guides, stuff like that, right? And especially if there are things that you are trying to learn here on a karmic level, right? Because the Hierophant card is a card of the teacher, right? And I just want to say, you want to be careful not to like hurt yourself in this process. When I was told before, whenever we see like a lot of like high swords, right? We have 8, 9, 10 of swords, right? So it's a card that can bring up things related to hospitalization, things like that. I'm not saying that it has to be that way. Right? I'm just saying it's like you don't want to stress yourself out. You don't want to push things too hard because you could end up hurting yourself, right? So it's like, if you're somebody that has like high blood pressure, right? It's like you don't want to be stressing yourself out. You want to be able to move with the flow of the energy, right? And if things aren't ready to move, like don't don't force it, right? You're just gonna be hitting your head against the wall, and how's that gonna help you, right? So it's not. So anyway, the Eight of Swords does talk about interference, right? So you want to, and so like I said, they're like sorting things out around your life right now, right? And especially if these things, if if you have this interference, right, and it has been showing up around you before, right? People interfering with your goals, your plans, your dreams, your aspirations, all of that stuff, right? Then, and they're creating confusion around your life, right? Then it could very well be time to cause these people to like separate, right? So you want to just pay attention to what it is that you're doing, why you're doing it, right? And you may be like kind of taking problems to bed with you at night, like trying to sort out the people that are interfering around your life, right? It's like look at the things that you've already learned, right? Like that's what we said in the beginning, and now we're coming full circle here. So um it's like you've learned these situations already. It's like I'm just going to leave you with this. If somebody has told you who they are, believe them. Right? If if somebody has shown you that, or if somebody has told you that they are a horse thief, believe them. Right? If they have proven themselves to be a liar, if they have proven themselves to be chaotic in your life, right, then it is time to be done. Right? So take care of yourself. Right? That's what we're going to say about here. So good luck with all of that. Thank you for coming here. Again, like, subscribe, share, check out other videos on my channel, stuff like that, right? And check out my Instagram. Same thing. Charles 13D might be listed as like MAGCKMN01. Right. So see you next time. Take care. Welcome. Ciao.